Hello and welcome to another episode of No Limit with Krzysztof and Luke, a Seven Investing production. You catch me early in the morning. I've only just made my coffee and Krzysztof saw me make my bed behind me as I was starting the video. How you going?
Rolling straight out of bed into the podcast realm, Luke. Attaboy, way to get him.
You're much more productive. You've been out for a run in the freezing cold, I gather.
Yeah, I was up at 6 a.m., did my meditation thing, did my run, did my walk in the cold with my dog, Bunk, but I declined the cold shower invitation this morning. My hands were so frozen that I was like, nope. None of that. Now I'm all did some reading, and now I'm all geared up and excited to talk to you. I've been bottling up so much, refraining from word vomiting on you on our internal Slack channel because, as you know, I lost my Las Vegas virginity.
Oh yes, of course you did. Yeah.
This was a gift from my beloved new wife. Not my first and beloved new wife.
Like not your Vegas wife that you met out
with. Right. And it's kind of astounding that I had never been to Vegas given, all my proclivities. And I wanted to kind of ramble about it a little bit because it's a thing. It's like there are experiences to be had there. And I want to say that I would argue that because of my spiritual practice, I wasn't going to fall into the ditch of falling for the shiny things, and losing my way in that regard. But I was worried that, the fakeness of it would make me queasy. But I think I got over that, within the first day. Meaning I kind of saw it for what it is, and, I didn't fall into that ditch. And then as soon as that happened, I had just the best time, figuring out how it works, walking through all the weird tunnels, and in some places like the Venetian, looking up at the postmodern replica and how fake it is. And yet I'm like, well, if you're going to make a mall, high-end mall, why not have gondolas in the middle of it, right? Like, why not have, the excess kind of started to charm me. And the whole time as I was walking around, I was thinking about the difference between a gambler's mindset and an investor's mindset in this world.
Okay.
Money as this classless, statusless thing that just makes the entire Vegas operation go. Like, it doesn't matter how you have your money. No one asks, right? And there are all these different ways to make it, but it doesn't represent anything beyond itself.
What were your highlights and lowlights of the trip? And did you play any poker?
Yes, I played in 4 different poker rooms, and my beloved wife is a complete noob, and I was trying to school her as much as possible. But she was brave enough to join me at the poker tables, and she mostly held her own. There were some blunders were made. But I was really, really, really proud of her. First day, oh man, the way I got rivered just nearly broke my heart. That it was an all-in situation. I had all my chips in with the best hand, which, if you know the theory of poker, when your opponent could see what your cards were and what your opponent's cards are, if you would do the same thing an infinite amount of time, that's how you were correct. If you would change your decision based on knowing what the cards are, you were on the lower end of the bargain. And so anyway, that first day I got rivered in such a heartbreaking fashion that it was like that reminder of the cruelty of the enterprise, but I more than made up for it the next 3 days.
Well, and that's a good investing lesson there as well, right? You're sometimes short-term luck can make a good decision, have a bad outcome, but doesn't mean the decision was wrong. Just it was an unlucky outcome that time. You'd still do that same thing 100 times over.
Exactly, yeah. That's such an important investing lesson. Short-term swings could happen for any number of reasons. They're not in our control. What is in control is, can you get back on the horse? Can you stay focused? Can you avoid the cool? trust your skill set, get back at it. And yeah, it ended up, the poker stuff ended up very well for me by trip's end. The other thing I wanted to mention is the shows. Of course, Vegas is known for shows, but until you go, I don't know, it's like hearsay and whatnot. But my lady took me to a Cirque du Soleil called Ka.
Yeah, I've seen that twice actually. That's great.
Oh, did you? That stage. Yeah. Oh man, that platform that rises and shifts. It was just so astounding. So astounding watching artists at the peak of their powers, and the joy of humans and what we could create.
Just for anyone who hasn't seen it, like the stage itself, the set is incredible. It's like this articulated stage that flips up, turns upside down, rolls on its side, and then the actors are just kind of rolling with it. It's like seeing The Matrix in real life almost. It's pretty insane. And it's the kind of thing you could never do kind of anywhere outside Vegas, really, I suppose. Because you've got this thing running for years and years to, investing less than right. They've got to recover their capex on this enormous piece of infrastructure, which I'm sure they've done many times over. Yeah,
that's one of the things I left the show with, thinking outside of some of the spectacular acrobats, the stage itself felt like the main character, and the ingenuity and, like you were saying, the capex to build this thing, it was just truly astounding. But the other highlight I have you to blame for.
Right. You went to Absinthe.
I went to Absinthe, and I went in cold because that's my preferred style. Try to know as little as possible. The only thing I caught the word ribald or body. I was like, okay, yeah, right on. And then, was it body? I don't know how often they change the shows, but they did not spare anyone's feelings.
No spoilers, I suppose, but it is kind of sexy. It's fun. It's incredible, acrobatics and incredible skill, and it's quite an emotional little, sort of vague thread that runs through the whole thing. But really, you're seeing like lots of very, very like world-class circus acts, kind of, put together on the same very, very intimate, tiny stage.
Yeah, and the vulgarity of it, was refreshing. See, that's the thing. There's something about Vegas. The last thing I want to say maybe is Vegas is known as a place that's fake, right? And that's what I even said. But there's something oddly honest about a place where money is just money, and a show like Absinthe that is entirely around like a no holds bar, say whatever you want, and you thinking the worst things and articulating them is so refreshing and so much fun. And we just had a hell of a time, Luke. So thank you so much for that recommendation.
Great, glad you enjoyed it. I figured it was up your street.
Yeah,
it's kind of fingers crossed that you didn't have a sensitive wife, but it sounds like she enjoyed it too, hopefully.
Maybe looking at some people's faces, maybe they were like, "Oh my God, what are we witnessing?"
Yeah,
but right, live and learn, right? Have you had some Vegas experiences that are memorable? And
we had an incredible free trip to Vegas once, about a decade ago, but for sort of bad reasons. One of my best friends, we were snowboarding in Jackson Hole for a fortnight, and he had pretty bad accident, and we laugh about it now. He's fully recovered, but it was quite severe at the time. We just got it's a pretty wild mountain, and we got a little complacent in the backcountry, an area we thought we knew pretty well, and then something went a bit sideways. So he broke 10 ribs and punctured his lung. So he was grounded for a month. So the other guys flew back to England. He was in Australia, I'm in the UK, and so I just hang out with him for a month. And I'm like, well, what are we going to do? Like he was the walking wounded, so we checked out a map and we're like, well, like his return flight is out of LA. So I'm like, well, why don't we road trip to LA? Oh, and by the way, Vegas is on that route. Let's go to Vegas for a month. Mm-hmm. So we did that. We called one of our best friends in Hong Kong and we're like, we're going to be in Vegas tomorrow. You fancy it? And he flew out and joined us. And then three of us kind of crammed into 2 hotel rooms. Shen's insurance paid for almost everything. I was his carer. So they covered all of his and my costs. So we basically paid like a third each. And we had an awesome month in Vegas and then a couple of weeks on Venice Beach in LA, kind of chilling out, going to see some UFC shows, playing a hell of a lot of poker, all at Shen's insurance company's dime. That was pretty cool.
Awesome. What's your favorite poker room?
The area is a nice room, but like there's a kind of low-end room along the strip. When you're playing, you're sort of almost open to the open air, and it's just kind of a much more drunken, wilder game. And the money gets thrown around, and it's a much softer game, which is my style prospers in kind of a weaker game where people want to have fun and they want to chat to the half-drunk Brit, and then my game kind of comes to life. It's going pretty well in Tahoe, actually. I'm definitely on track to cover my ski season costs in the local poker game. So I need to put some more volume in, actually, my hourly rate here, because I do track quite a lot of stats, as you probably imagine. My hourly rate's about $80 an hour. So I just need to put the volume in and I'll cover my season costs.
Quit sleeping in and get to work, buddy.
You got it.
I love the win. Yeah. And I sent you some future tournaments going on for February, April.
I think I'm here. I'm enjoying the ski season. If you want to come down and play in the local game, though, come on over.
All right.
We should talk some investing topics, right? This isn't the poker
That's
podcast.
right.
Should we talk about being a customer of the companies you invest in? I was reflecting on this the other day because I was just interviewed by the Chit Chat Money podcast, Brett and Ryan, friends of the show, and we were chatting about a company that I'm a customer of called Wise, kind of a UK fintech. And I won't say too much about the company, like go listen to the Chit Chat Money episode. We get into quite a lot of detail about it. But I found this company because I needed to set up international banking to get paid by Seven Investing. And it was just far and away the most convenient, cheapest, fastest way of me receiving US dollars, being able to hold those US dollars or turn them into sterling if I wanted to, or other currencies, and just essentially have the equivalent of a US bank account. It's a really, really clever facility, and very, very cheap. Like you're basically almost getting foreign exchange at like the mid rate. There's no spread, and you pay a really small fee. So I loved it for the business banking. I thought, this is great. I got myself like a personal debit card with them as well. So I do all my personal bank, like international banking with them too now. And I'm like, this is just actually an incredible company. So started digging into like the UK equivalent of their 10K and kind of understanding them as an investment. And actually, I think an incredible investment. So again, go listen to my thesis on Chit Chat Money. But it did make me reflect on like the number of companies in my portfolio where I am a customer of them. And there's no better way of really understanding like a company's mission and how customer friendly it is, maybe what the drawbacks are. You know, maybe they've got like an incredible back end service, but actually it's just like kind of horrible to use, and the app is terrible, stuff like that. You know, you get like a real kind of gritty feel of what this organization's like. So I kind of highly endorse that as a way of understanding your own investments. Is there anything in your portfolio where you're a customer to?
Yeah, very much so. We're talking about the Peter Lynch style of investing. I think this is how many beginners start. At least I recall as one of my entry points into this world, where the idea is invest in what you know.
Yep.
And I think all of the greatest gains in my investing career have come from this principle. And I'll name the big ones. Apple, as an Apple fanatic, Tesla, and Chipotle. 3 products. Loved the story, loved everything about it, but that I was experiencing firsthand. And I think, for me, Luke, what makes being an owner investor so worthwhile is that when the stock price does whatever insane things it does, you can just return to that firsthand experience that allows you, I think, to settle into the material reality. It helps ground your perspective. Like, is this car really that good? Oh, yes, it is.
Yeah, I agree. And actually, a sort of counter anecdote as well. I invested in a company called Stitch Fix many years ago. If you haven't heard of it, basically you order kind of clothes and you get like a box that would arrive once a month or once a quarter, whatever cadence you wanted. and the AI were to put 6 things in the box for you. You keep what you like, and you send back what you don't like, and then the thing kind of learns, and you can give like feedback online. And it's kind of AI supported by humans, like stylists or something. And then the idea is like, and your whole wardrobe's managed for you. So I like the idea. I thought it was quite smart, and invested. And then they rolled out in the UK, and I became like a subscriber, and it just didn't work for me. But the thing that made me realize actually the model just didn't work was, like I got 1 or 2 items. I kept a couple of things. I got 1 or 2 things though where like I wanted like a pair of trousers, and there was something about the style I didn't like, and I gave really specific feedback, like 3 boxes in a row. And they kept sending me the thing that I was specifically saying, like, don't send me this. So I was like, this model just doesn't work. It's not learning. Even the stylist, the human, isn't getting it. So I closed my account and I sold my stock. And I'm kind of glad I did. I don't know if it's anything to do with that, but like the company has bombed. The CEO left, and it's down like 90x% or something. But yeah, you can learn good and bad about a company by being the customer.
Maybe the extra ingredient I would add is that exposure is not the quality I'm merely looking for. I'm looking for a kind of passion for the products. If I could find passion in the products that I use, that's the thing that steers my ship. If there's no passion, that's fine, because that's a deeper understanding anyway, but that may or may not work out.
Let's pick up our next topic. This is a mysterious one. I'm checking out our Monday.com dashboard, and you've just got a question. Is this so? What's that about?
I think I wanted to talk about this, Luke, because I find this, it's a Zen Parable, and I'll read it because it's pretty short, but the way we could apply it as investors is potent. Not just in our lives, but investors. So the story goes, the Zen Master Hakuin was praised by his neighbors as one living a beautiful and pure life. A Japanese girl whose parents owned a food store lived near him. Suddenly, without any warning, her parents discovered she was with child. This made her parents very angry. She would not confess who the man was, but after much harassment at last named Hakuin. In great anger, the parent went to the master. "Is that so?" was all he would say. After the child was born, it was brought to Hakuin. By this time, he had lost his reputation, which did not trouble him, but he took very good care of the child. He obtained milk from his neighbors and everything else he needed. A year later, the girl mother could stand it no longer. She told her parents the truth. The real father of the child was a young man who worked in the fish market. The mother and father of the girl at once went to Hakuin to ask forgiveness, to apologize at length, and to get the child back. Hakuin was willing. In yielding the child, all he said was, "Is that so?" I think the reason I wanted to talk about this is because in the investing world, there's obviously divergence of opinion. And many times we get into disagreements. And we're humans, and it's rarely a simple and straightforward path, right? The typical reaction is to start defending oneself, right? I mean, anytime you get attacked, critiqued, it's human nature to start pushing back, fighting back. But of course, that creates a vicious cycle. The attacks just keep amplifying. And then I would say objectivity is lost, right? All of a sudden, you're now, the attacks become more personal and vicious, and it's just a mess, right? And this capacity to explicitly, deliberately remain in the state of mind that says, I don't know, or it's not, I don't think it's just humility. I don't think this is the case where you should be meek and merely apologize, right? And not hold your center. But as investors, think of how much more we could learn from each other when we work with one another, even in the presence of a strong counter opinion. Instead of saying immediately you're wrong or you're stupid or this and that, you actually force yourself to say, is that so? Inviting almost another question or a conversation.
Is the main lesson here about Hakuin's sort of stoicism in accepting the situation, or is it more a question, like you're saying, is that so, as an investing question to try and understand the counterpoint to your own maybe confirmation bias structure that might be in your own head?
Yeah, I think it's a combination of those things, Luke. And stoicism here in this case, just not to misunderstand that view, by taking in the child, by raising the child in the story, it wasn't like he wasn't merely passive, right? I just want to emphasize that he actively did the thing that needed to be done on both ends of the spectrum, right? When he was blamed for something he didn't actually do, and then later for, relinquishing the child after raising it. It seems to me more like a quality of mind that is able to, in the Stoic way, like you were saying, be with discomfort without itself getting agitated. And I think simultaneously staying open-minded to possible alternatives and possible views, knowing that things always change, right? So I think when we see people get really stiff and rigid and maybe start going on the attack, it's wise to remember as investors, we don't always know the entire truth. Going on a counterattack will, in the end, be detrimental to everyone. To me, this doesn't feel like just hoity-toity moralistic stuff. I've seen this time and time and time again. Good, smart investors get their egos wounded, and then they create fractures, right? And then after that, they're probably, from my point of view, way worse because they're now on the outside.
Yeah, I wholeheartedly buy that. And maybe if we just think about that within the 7 investing service, like the power there is the Discord, which is still coming together. We've got over 1,000 members now. Most of you are, if you're listening, don't contribute to the conversation. Like, get stuck in, ask a question, pose a challenge to the advisors. But those of you, like there's a good 50 or 60 folk now who are commenting regularly. I get a tremendous amount of value out of being in those conversations. We've got some incredibly smart subscribers who add a lot of their own knowledge and perspective and challenge. So that's valuable.
Extraordinarily valuable.
Well, not to drift into kind of another advert spot, but I wonder if I could just quote from a really nice comment we had on the Discord just a day or two ago. One of our members said, "It's a community trying to help each other to learn, educate, arouse curiosities and succeed. As individual investors, we should be trying to help each other, fill in each other's gaps and act as propellants for one another. Anything less and we're no better than the leeches in the high towers who view the world through the prism of a performance derby. I've been here since the beginning of the 7 investing service. It is everything I need it to be. The level of interaction, engagement and input by the advisors is off the charts." Pretty heartwarming stuff to see that from one of our members. So I'm hoping a bunch more folk feel similarly. I certainly do, to be honest. Even being part of the team, it's incredible being able to chat to just people who are so interested in these topics.
Yeah, I took that, heartwarming indeed. I took that and I put it into Chat GPT and I said, improve on this this advert, and it said impossible. Sparks started coming out of my computer. So thank you so much for that inspiring and motivating quote for us to keep doing this work on behalf of so many that seem to find genuine value in our community.
So you're a bit of a reader, Krzysztof. What's on your reading list right now?
So I wanted to let our community know that the next book I'm planning to read specifically for investing purposes is titled The End of the World is Just the Beginning by Peter Zeihan, I believe is his name, Mapping the Collapse of Globalization. So haven't read it yet, but this one blurb on the back I had, in case you're interested in joining me reading this month, is makes me feel like this is the thing to read. Peter Zeihan is the Nostradamus of the 21st century. Using geography as his analytical foundation, He's able to explain why nations behave the way they do today and predict with astounding accuracy how they'll behave tomorrow. Nowhere will you find a more objective and logical examination of geopolitical currents. A masterful blend of economics, demographics, environmental factors, cultural propellers, and realpolitik, Peter's books simplify the incredibly complex forces that drive states forward and back. The world is rapidly changing, especially America's role in it, and Peter navigates this journey with clarity, rigor, and wit. If your passion is politics, investing, energy, technology, international relations, or just being smart and interesting at parties, read Peter's book. And so I always want to be smart and I mean be not be the dumb guy at the party. So that's why I'm reading it.
As I saw the book on your list, I didn't realize it was Zeihan. So because I subscribed to his podcast just like 2 weeks ago after seeing one of his videos. I think I put a link in Slack. I don't know if that's where you saw the guy. He's incredible, actually. I mean, if he's right, he has these like every day like a 5 or 6 minute YouTube and podcast. Like if he's right about the world, we are fucked. It's really terrifying stuff. But it's really interesting, and it's certainly credible, the sort of arguments he puts forward.
And let me push back a little bit on that, Luke. Even if things go to hell in the handbasket, right? Because that's a real possibility. It is always possible to make really wise investments. The reason I think a book like this would be truly valuable is if you really understand where the winds are shifting to or away from, that's where you start sniffing, right? In these corners that not everyone else can foresee will be the next new thing. And that's the beauty maybe of the investing game, if you want to call it that. There's always opportunity. Humans, it's what we do, right? We create things, we build things. And this feels to me, without having read it yet, exactly the kind of work needed to confront confirmation bias, right? Especially what you said, like if we have a tremendous amount of fear, right? If any of his prognostications turn out to be true and it's bad, and we have fear, good. That's how we know, right? We're facing down our own beliefs.
Yeah, I guess it's certainly super helpful to think about where the world might be going and all the different possibilities. You know, there's no binary thinking in this stuff. It's probabilities and likelihoods. But if you buy into Zeihan's view of where geopolitics is going to take us in the next couple of years, like sell your China stocks immediately.
Are you saying you're going to read this with me?
I'm gonna absorb this via the YouTube and the podcast. You know, only reason why is like I don't normally pull out books, but here's my reading list at the moment, right? So this is I put the poker book aside. That's work. But, like you sent me these two to read, and I'm 3 chapters into the yellow one, How Finance Works by Mihir Desai. It's great, it's really good. I'm learning a ton in this book. But you've already queued up Expectations Investing by Mabusan and Rappaport. So it's going to take me like a month to get through those two. So no, I can't join you on the Zeihan book too.
All right, fair enough. No, those other investing books, yeah, they're so good. And hopefully we could
by far, right? The toughest read of those 3 is my poker book, Modern Poker Theory. Bloody hell, this is blowing my mind. Yeah.
Oh, is it? You know, it's actually I was looking for it yesterday, but it turns out it's at the very bottom of my stack, and it will require major reconstructive surgery to get it out. But it's blowing your mind.
Yeah.
Like I can't imagine at this point like a poker book like blowing my mind. Like what?
Like it's blowing my mind in the sense that. A bit like many topics, right? You think you understand something, and then you suddenly realize there's a completely different perspective, and you don't actually understand this topic at all. I've been playing poker for 30 years, and I've gone through that epiphany maybe 3 or 4 times where my game has just jumped to the next level, and I've suddenly realized actually the game isn't about this thing I thought it was about. It's actually about this other thing. Maybe I've done that 3 or 4 times, and I haven't had one of those epiphanies for a good 10 or 15 years. This book has suddenly made me realised actually poker is about this other thing, which I was aware of, but I think I might have hit my limit. I don't think I have the cognitive capacity, if I'm completely honest, to take my game to that next level, which is why I'll probably always be like an $80 an hour winning poker player as opposed to an $8,000 an hour winning poker player.
Yeah, all right. I gotta pull it out.
It's probably quite telling that my biggest win so far was 3 nights ago, very drunk.
Right. I'm sure you are at your maxed cognitive capacity in employing
right.
all of that theory. There is one thing that I heard about this book that is a little disconcerting, and it was was it Liv? What's her last name? Yeah, she might have said something that the way I understood it was that this is the actual limit in terms of figuring it all out, and that players can, with enough work, get there. But once you get there, there's no more. It's almost like the fear of something you thought was infinite reaching a mechanical endpoint.
Actually, so let me re-describe that a little bit, because there is another aspect to it as well that I think Liv talked about when she was interviewed by Friedman. So what this book takes you to is understanding how to play game theory optimal poker. And so you're right, that is sort of a limit in the sense that if you're able to play perfectly, in inverted commas, like against any other perfect player, you'll be kind of break even. Like you can't be exploited, and you'll never make a mistake. And in the long term, in the short term, anything can happen because of luck. But in the long term, you will prosper. And AI is now there. Like, there are bots that play game theory optimal poker. And this book tries to get you to the point that your intuition can approximate that. It's probably not possible for a human to be able to play perfectly. But there is a level beyond that, because once you can play like a solid GTO game, game theory optimal game, the level beyond that is then diverging from that to exploit your opponents. So then the psychology does come back into the game, I think. If your opponents are playing in a suboptimal way, then you can play in a counterbalancing suboptimal way that exploits their mistakes. Mm-hmm. But if they realize that, they may adjust to your adjustments. So it becomes like a leveling war again. So there still is this sort of human element of poker. But you're right, there is this sort of core now, which we have the theory of, and we have like AIs that can play. But I think there's still room for human ingenuity.
All right. Yeah. Well, yeah, we've got a ways to go, right? I mean, to master this level takes extraordinary amount.
I never will. Yeah. It's beyond my capacity, I think. I found my game. I'm sticking with it, I think. But I'm still taking some interesting, just reminders about how to play solid poker from this book.
Mm-hmm. Cool. All right. Tell me, Luke, about the Google AI lawyer getting sued.
Yeah, well, not Google, but AI lawyers. So there's a website called Do Not Pay. You might have heard of it, and it's like they used to help you fight like parking tickets and fines and stuff like that. They're quite techy. It's like a East Coast US startup, and it's all about fighting the man. But they do have kind of AI in there, and it helps you sort of put together like your complaint letter, things like that. I've used it in the past. It's pretty cool. Anyway, the founder of Do Not Pay has created a AI lawyer, and so evidently there was going to be a test case coming up in the next few months where a chap was going to defend himself, and then he'd have like an earpiece, and the AI lawyer would be feeding him legal arguments based on how the case was progressing to enable him to fight his own case. So I was intrigued that unfortunately the founder has had to shut this program down because he's been threatened in multiple states for being sued for practicing law without a license. And made me snigger a little bit because, this is kind of, I suppose, the ultimate example of, people whose jobs are about to be displaced, kind of fighting back, like the taxi drivers fighting back against the Ubers. Well, here now we've got the lawyers fighting back against the AI lawyer. So quite interesting. I mean, I do think this is probably going to be the direction of travel for law, along with, most other white collar jobs. Yeah, what do you reckon?
What do I reckon, Luke? This is so much on my mind in the education space, so I could see exactly how this should be on the mind of lawyers and all white collar workers. And I think that's maybe why this AI moment feels so momentous, because in previous eras we could see why the label blue collar, right? Why something that's kind of more mechanizable, how that would be replaced. That kind of made sense from the beginning, like human labor replaced by a mechanical robot. But things that we deem to be special or requiring many years of education, for those things to now be clearly in the crosshairs makes me really take that next leap into the whole question of work in general, and universal basic income, and what would humanity do if jobs were no longer really the point? I mean, this is Exhibit A.
Yeah. I mean, things like this probably are the future of work, right? There may be no practical work for us to do. We're just out kind of doing dumb stuff to keep ourselves entertained.
Or if you want to be maybe a little bit more hoity-toity about it, instead of say dumb stuff, we could potentially all be artists of a certain kind, right? Meaning aestheticians, right? Where it's not just kitsch that we're responsible for. Left to our own devices, what could we create that could have beauty and value, but not necessarily pragmatic value?
Mid-Journey and Dali too, right? They're producing some pretty beautiful works of art, winning competitions.
Yeah, so there's... I enjoy thinking about a world where work is not the point.
Yeah, like if it's probably a big statement, there's like 8 billion of us now, but if we all had the opportunity to do whatever the thing we were passionate about was, and to explore those passions, and you're not limited by, availability of money or energy and other constraining factors, then as long as we're not out there kind of enjoying murdering each other, right, then maybe that's utopian, or maybe it's hell. Maybe that's the pointlessness of existence, because suddenly you don't have to struggle.
It's fascinating to think that people several centuries or maybe millennia in front of us will look at this is still the dark ages where humans had to work kind of mentality. Anything's possible. Yeah. Speaking of AI, quick thing about a fun toy I found. Google is working on its own music generation AI thing, and this one is not publicly available yet. But this one allows you to spell out using human words and descriptors what you want your thing to sound like, basically ChatGPT, and it creates a tune. And the ones I listen to are just so good. Check out this descriptor: a fusion of reggaeton and electronic dance music with a spacey, otherworldly sound induces the experience of being lost in space, and the music would be designed to evoke a sense of wonder and awe while being danceable. Right, that's the descriptor, and what came out the other end was just so banging. It's like, cool. Oh my god! So hopefully, it's a 30-second clip. You could see what it sounds like.
I'll jam that into the episode. Yeah, it's pretty. It's cool. It'd be nice to be able to play with this tool.
Yeah, wild, just wild. I can't get enough of this stuff. And for our community members, know that my eyes and ears continue to really be perked in looking for what the next great investment that might take advantage of this stuff might be. But it's still early days.
And if you listen to this, right, if you found your own cool AI tool, then tweet us and let us know. We're always looking for fun stuff to play with.
That's right. And we're both on the Twitters. Luke is at 7 Luke Hallard, HALLARD, and I am 7 Flying Platypus. So please send us some DMs, questions. We'd love to interact with our listeners.
Absolutely.
Are we ready for the 3 questions?
We are. The 3 conversations game. Should I just do a quick
Yeah.
explanation again? This is episode 10. Maybe you're joining in for the first time, but we close out every episode with the 3 conversations game. And I think this week, Krzysztof's going to pose 3 conversation topics to me. I'm going to cancel one of them, and then he's going to pick one of the remaining 2. And I have to give him a minute of wisdom on that topic. And we don't prepare. We've got no idea what we're going to ask each other. So what you got for me this week, buddy?
All right. First question, Luke. A softball is, you're a snowboarder and a motorcycler, correct? If you level up significantly in one of those, but then only get to do that one activity for the rest of your life, but not the other, what would you choose?
Okay.
Question 2. Imagine you're young Luke, you're 18, and you got $100K as a grant. And you could either go to university with that $100K, so tuition paid, or you could take that $100K and learn whatever you needed using, let's call it YouTube University, which let's include ChatGPT and its cousins. What would you pick? Which road would you pick?
And I've got the residual of the 100K that I saved on not spending on a university education in the second one, presumably.
Yes, exactly. You would have up to 100K, and yeah. And last question. Think about a situation that was challenging and hard, right? And you gave the answer that you did. How would that situation have been different if instead of saying the thing you did, you would have said, "Is that so?" So a pickle that you got yourself into, given your typical fiery Luke answer, how would things have changed had you been a Zen master instead? Capable of saying, "Is that so?"
Okay. I mean, so despite living a full and rich life, I haven't been accused of being a father by anybody just yet. Nothing springs to mind as a good "is that so" scenario to explore. So I guess I will nix that one. But it's a good question. I like you looping back to that earlier topic.
Okay, so I want to hear about your snowboarding, motorcycling. Tell us more, and how you would think about making this decision.
Okay, I love both of these sports, and I think I'm probably more passionate about, I'm going to say, like skiing and snowboarding as one thing, because I now do them both, and they were like a perfect counterpoint to the injuries. Like I smashed my elbow, probably can't see the bruise, yesterday on the snowboard, so today I can ski and I'll give that a few days to heal. So would I choose those? And I'm certainly more passionate about those than motorcycling. Or would I choose motorcycling? I think I might choose to be like a leveled up motorcyclist, only because I kind of fear that climate change is perhaps going to erode my ability to do winter sports, as well as like an aging body, right? So I've now rearranged my life so I can do every ski season. So I'm going to be like in a mountain somewhere for the first 3 months of hopefully every year until I can no longer do this stuff. But maybe it will become more elitist, and like the whole of Europe, the whole season has been pretty screwed this year so far. Like they've had no snow. So it would be expensive and more complex, and I probably can't rally like a bunch of friends to come and join me if it's just, becoming a less accessible sport. Whereas motorcycling has a lot of practical utility all year round. And so we've just planned Croatia, Bosnia, Serbia on the bikes. So heading out there in April. And we're running into my wife's birthday, so I've invited her out, and she's going to come and spend like a weekend, and we'll be in like a nice part of Croatia for the weekend. But essentially it's a motorbike trip. So it's a really, really nice way of seeing the world. Plus it's practical, like living in an urban city like London. So if I could level up my motorcycling is pretty good. Like I used to be an instructor. I'm fairly competent on 2 wheels, but it is a dangerous sport, no argument. So if I could level up my motorcycling and then maybe just be, perhaps as quick, but just a little bit safer, perhaps that's like the aspect of the leveling up I would take, then that has a lot of practical utility, I think, in my life.
Wow, Luke Hallard, the world's dullest man. Just- when snowboarding mountains isn't satisfying enough, off to Croatia. Wow, cool. Thanks for answering.
Cool. Thanks for the question. Very good. Alrighty. That's
So that-
episode 10.
yeah.
Got 10 episodes in the bag now, dude. Wow, we're into double digits.
Amazing, right? Amazing how time flies. I love doing these. It really makes me think in the broadest terms in trying to find out what's the most interesting stuff to parse through. And you're such a great partner with whom to get some of these thoughts out there. For our listeners, I want to reiterate that we are so open to questions and future topics and controversies. We don't want to make this soft, right? We want to make this a really good, engaging, and fiery, worthwhile listen. So if you have any suggestions, ping us on the Twitters or on the Discord, and we'll take it from there.
It's good stuff. And one thing I learned today that I hadn't noticed before, you always sit in a particular position, and I had no idea there was like a rack of about 100 bottles of, looks like whiskeys and bourbons behind you. I'd never seen that before. Your head was always bobbing it. Yeah. That's interesting. You're trying to be this erudite, well-read character, but actually you're an alcoholic.
Well, I have a funny thing too is I haven't had a drop in 40 days or so. So my willpower is actually quite extraordinary. But whiskey goes in the morning coffee, when the drinking days are on.
Well, if I'm going up the mountain, right, my backpack has like a granola bar, a hip flask full of Baileys. There's a bit of a softer ball there, and then like the liquid lunch is like a hazy beer. So that's how I run my day.
Gotta keep it warm in there on those cold slopes. All right, Luke, it's been a delight. Until next time.
Cool beans, Krzysztof. And if you enjoyed today's episode, do us a favour and share it with a friend. Look forward to seeing you all in episode 11 in 2 weeks' time.